Hello, my name is Austin Belzer, and welcome to another conversation from Slamdance 2020. Today, I have the director, screenwriter, producer, and one of the stars of Audio Description, a short film premiering at Slamdance 2025. Description is a short film about Eric, a lonely blind man who makes a unknown birthday wish. Am I getting that description right? Okay, and it will not world premiere, but it will screen. I'm getting this right. Panasonic Lumix Theater this Sunday, followed by a screening at the Summer and David Theater the day after. Luke, welcome. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to talk with me, virtually, albeit, but still kind of a form of sitting down. But yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, no problem. And then let's just get right into the film. It uses audio description as a support track, but also a character in its own right. What sparked the idea to give audio description a voice of its own, and how did you develop that concept during pre-production? Either one of you can answer that one.
Well, so I came up with this idea as we did this as a film challenge. So we had a limited number of days, 5 days to make the film, and so I was conceptualizing some ideas before, and I knew that Lee was going to be starring in it and producing it, and so I was just kind of thinking, what's a creative way we could pull Lee's world into this film. And do something that felt fun and fresh and different. So that's a little bit of the idea. And then I'll let Lee talk to you a little bit about audio description and the device itself.
Yeah, for context, first of all, I'm visually impaired. I have partial vision in my left eye, no vision at all in my right eye. And so when I watch like movies or TV shows, I use an audio description track. And for those that may not know what that is, that's a narrative track that describes the action of a film in between lines of dialogue so that blind and low vision viewers are able to get a more complete experience of things, visually that they might miss. So when Luke pitched this idea to me about making audio description a character in the film and actually making it not just an outside track that would be a supplemental resource for blind and low vision viewers, I thought it was brilliant and incredibly creative, and appreciated the fact that it also brings a level of authenticity from my walk as a visually impaired individual, but also the way that I experience media too. And I thought it was a really cool way to be able to introduce audio description to communities that may not know how it exists, and also may not understand the full benefit of how it can enhance a viewing experience.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about that. Um, Audio description, you uh, described it pretty perfectly. So, like, for example, if you're watching a Spider-Man, you'd hear the thwip. It would describe the thwips. Am I understanding that right? When
Yeah,
he shoots his webs, it'd be like Spider-Man shoots webs or something like that. Am I getting that right?
yeah, absolutely. So it'd be like, like Spider-Man shoots webs and it hits, like Green Goblin on his forehead, the web deflects and like, flies off of him and hits this other person. So it's very specific and very detailed description. And yeah, it really fills in a lot of those details that I realized I was missing before I started using audio description as a viewer.
Also, fun story. I was actually watching Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire one, with audio description while I was writing the script.
I just brought that up because I just was watching Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the finale yesterday. So that's
Nice.
that's the only reason I brought up Spider-Man. I promise I didn't know that, but that's awesome.
And it's funny too, because we didn't set it up as a superhero thing in any way, but
Mhm.
people have pointed out to us that it does almost give Eric, the lead character, this sort of superhero power where he can hear, a dialogue of everything that's going on, and he can know almost more than what a regular sighted person would know. So it's kind of an interesting um, power for his character.
And but yeah, so anytime you for viewers or listeners, if you see English AD on iTunes, that's the track we're referring to when we talk about audio description. We're not talking about the device you bring into an AMC where you can ask to have like subtitles appear below you. That's not the same thing because I have used that and that's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
but not the same thing.
On that note, actually, it's funny you mentioned AMC because that's the common theater I go to here in LA, and there have been a handful of times they know me now, but like initially when I would ask for an audio description device, they would always hand me the closed captioning device. So it took a bit of time for me to continue showing up there just so they knew the difference. And to be fair, they probably weren't fully trained on the different devices because they're probably not used as much. But it's funny that you mentioned that, though.
Well, I mentioned it because I used to use those because even though I have really good hearing, sometimes audio mixes can be jumbled, so I'll sometimes ask for it. It it kind of becomes its own hassle, I think, for lack of a better word, when you're like, I need this thing in order to see this movie, otherwise I'm not going to be able to enjoy it. But yeah, I just thought I'd let people know the difference. And thank you, Eric, for describing the description, or Lee for describing uh, uh, audio description. But speaking of Eric, the main character, Lee, I would love to hear about how your experiences helped shape Eric into the character he is, and how that shaped the story.
Yeah, so well, first of all, Luke and I have been friends for over a decade. And so Luke knows me pretty well. He knows kind of like my quirks and has also seen me kind of navigate the world, being visually impaired. So
Mm-hmm.
as he was writing, he was definitely writing with me in mind and kind of, just the way that I operate and the things that I would say or do, as myself. And so a lot of inspiration for the character of Eric was drawn from my own life and who I am. And it was great to be able to, put my own walk of life into a character in a very authentic way. And, not in a way that it's like, let's make this like, the inspirational blind character or,
Sure.
something like that, but just like, this is just a person living life like anyone else and something happens to them. And it was nice to have that level of freshness and authenticity to represent me and to represent, disability at large. And Luke, I'll let you add any additional comments if you have any.
I think you summed it up pretty good there. Yeah. It is interesting though how there's definitely a level of this that comes from real life, even though we're not trying to make Eric a replica of Lee. But even like the nickname, like one of my nicknames for Lee is Eric, and so that's why I named the character Eric. And I mean that's a whole other long story of why I call him Eric. But yeah, and then even just being able to direct him on set and pull things from his life that I know, to help him kind of like get to that place with the character, and it was just so much fun. Like, I mean, I grew up making movies with friends, and that was kind of the thing that I always wanted to do. And this was the first project that Lee and I have worked together on, and it was just a phenomenal experience. We had such a fun time making it.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And then, Luke, I'd love to hear about the process of both directing and writing this movie from both you know, you have to incorporate the technical function of audio description and then kind of bridge the gap for audiences who aren't aware of what that is. So I'd love to hear about how you approach that challenge, if you
Yeah.
call it that.
Well, I do think, there can be a bit of a learning curve. There's quite a few people out there that still are totally unaware of audio description and what it is. And I didn't want to just lay out all this heavy exposition. So I kind of went with the approach of we're just going to let people figure out what this is by experiencing it themselves. Um, and so that was, as far as introducing like a sighted audience or an unfamiliar audience with audio description, that was sort of how we approached that. And as far as I can tell, it seems to have worked well. And then, writing the script was interesting because I had to write two versions. I wrote one version without any audio description, and then I wrote a second one with audio description. And part of that was because the film challenge we were doing, the film had to be 5 minutes max. And so I knew we had these time constraints, and usually a script is 1 page per minute of finished film. So when you have the audio description version of the script, it's like 8 or 9 pages. And so yeah, it was interesting having to kind of write two versions side by side. That was definitely something I'd never done before. And it was a fun challenge for me to figure out. But yeah.
And to add to that, oh sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, to add to that, Luke did such a fantastic job with writing the script. And then, I was also able to bring in my own experience, like, reading the different drafts of it and realizing, okay, maybe let's word this, this way. And like, bringing in kind of my own experience of being a viewer who uses audio description as well, and kind of helping to like refine some of those audio description beats as well. So it was that was really fun to be involved in the editing process for the writing as well.
Yeah, and I'd actually love to hear more about that perspective for you, because you say, there's these things that only I believe that you would know about. And how did you collaborate with Luke on that? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, if I can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Luke wrote the script first and gave it to me. And when I say that I had to I helped him like trim it down and cut it and stuff. There was so much good stuff in the script already that it was hard to know like what to cut and still have like a full story arc within 5 minutes. And then beyond that, just making sure that the audio description beats weren't like, I think sometimes with audio description, people can be overly descriptive in track where they don't need to be,
Sure.
or they don't describe enough, or they're commentating too much where it's like, he looks angry, or he's the smart person, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, with audio description, the goal is to objectively give the facts of what's happening. And it's an art form all in itself. And props to Luke for having to do writing a screenplay is one thing, but also writing an audio description script and is a whole nother art form in and of itself that people work tirelessly on. So integrating those two things in, to Luke's credit, it's no easy feat to do. So, I just would be like, hey, maybe let's phrase it this way, or maybe we don't need this much description. We can just go with, this phrase instead, and trying to find the most direct and concise way to bring in the description. But also it's interesting because the audio description narrator is also a character in this film as well. So that kind of changes the dynamic a little bit too, of when is the audio description narrator acting as a character interacting with Eric, and when is the audio description narrator just narrating the film. And so, working together with Luke to find that exact balance to get it in that sweet spot, I guess, was a fun.
I was just going to say, and we would be remiss to not give credit to Jonathan Rieger, our actor who played the role of Duncan / audio description. I felt like did such a good job of bringing this character to life that's normally not a character. And once again, we tried not to overwrite that character and his dialogue and everything. And he even had to kind of play two roles, sort of, that Lee and I had talked about ahead of time, was like, he's playing a role as an audio describer, but also as a human, as just another person that is interacting with Eric throughout the story. So, and I felt like he did such a great job of jumping in between those two modes throughout the film.
And to add on to that too, when I was on set doing, my scenes, I don't have an actual physical person to interact with, but Jonathan was there with me. And so he was, sitting across the table from me or sitting in the same room as me, doing his lines as well. So I had someone to play off of. And then later, Luke and Jonathan recorded all of the audio description, narrator, and character lines in a separate session. So, but it was helpful to have him there, just to have someone to play off of. And we've known each other for a while, and we have a really fun chemistry together. So a lot of times we were just kind of like bantering back and forth. And, I think a few of those lines that we just improvised with each other kind of actually made it into the script too. or into the final cut, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep talking about that challenge, that 5 minute runtime challenge. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. You said you made this film as part of a 5 minute challenge. I'd love to hear about like the structure of that challenge and how that kind of shaped this and kind of the short film's ultimate journey to Slamdance.
Lee, you want to take that?
Yeah, so what this challenge was is a challenge called the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge. And it's basically to allow creatives to be able to tell stories about disability authentically. And the only requirement of the challenge is that one of the people in front of the camera or behind the scenes has to have a disability, whether visible or invisible. And then you have 5 days to complete a film from start to finish, from pre-production to post-production. And you don't really have a budget for it too. You're not allowed to like pay like, crew or cast for it. And you're supposedly not supposed to like, you're also not supposed to like pay for like locations and stuff, that everything you get that you get to make this film is basically a donation. So our budget was less than $200. It was like the entry fee and crafty for, cast and crew. But it was a pretty low shoestring budget. So we did the film challenge, and, we didn't even know. At the end of it, we're just like, well, we got the film in, we're proud of it. And at that point in time, we didn't expect that anything would necessarily happen beyond that, but we're like, we made a good product and this was actually really fun and we're proud of it. And then a few weeks later, the nominations were announced for the Disability Film Challenge. And we were nominated for Best Film, Best Director, and Best Writer. And that was really exciting, just even being nominated. And then when we won the film challenge, the award ceremony was at the Sony lot in May of last year. We won the film challenge, and that was incredible. What we didn't realize at the time to the full degree that, it was happening was that the founder of the Disability Film Challenge, Nick Novicki, who's an incredible individual and has become a really good friend to both of us, he really is connected with industry people. So, some of the judges for this film challenge were people from like, executives from like Netflix or IMDb, just like all these really big industry places. And so once we won the film challenge with audio description, it kind of opened up the door to a lot of different opportunities, including, being able to screen this film at the Paramount lot for the Disability Summit, screening it for NBC executives, having mentor meetings and other meetings with people that are very high up in the industry. And it also allowed us to play the film at the Holly Shorts Film Festival in Los Angeles and Heartland Film Festival in Indiana last year. Also, with part of being the winner of the film challenge, we also received a grant that allowed us to hire a film festival strategist. And so we've been able to enter into multiple film festivals, and Slamdance was one of the festivals that we submitted to, and we were thrilled when we got the result back that we were going to be screening there. So just a lot of really exciting stuff. And the goal of Nick Novicki and the Film Challenge is to help people with disabilities get real work in the industry. And it's opened up a lot of doors for me personally, as a disabled creative who's, had a challenging time in some regards, really kind of breaking in. But this has given me a lot of visibility, and it's the industry, so you hold everything very loosely. But yeah, now Luke and I are working on developing this into a feature film, and we've had meetings with people that are interested. So that's the next step in this process. And Luke, do you want to add anything?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, for any of your viewers or readers, the film challenge is open right now for new applicants, and Lee and I cannot highly recommend enough this festival. It's the most life-changing festival I've been a part of, and I'm talking about the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge, but it creates a community around you, and and I feel like it's been so empowering to everyone, and it's just amazing. Like, we've had so many great opportunities through this, and I just recommend everyone to jump in and make a film. And it's very empowering because it's like also teaching you you don't have to wait for Hollywood to give you a yes or an okay to go out there and make something. You can just do it. And here's a time where we can do it. We can share our work with each other and celebrate each other and promote each other's work. So yeah, just wanted to give that little plug.
That's a great plug because I know Easterseals is a great company, and I actually wasn't aware of the film challenge, but I do know that, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure Easterseals are the ones that provide a lot of those, caption devices that we talked about earlier and really lead a lot of the accessibility efforts.
I don't know the exact details of what their exact involvement is in that, but I do know that they are involved heavily within that space. Because I always see
Yeah,
their name, even with like Slamdance, for example, it's like the closing ceremony is sponsored by Easterseals. So
yeah,
they definitely do a lot for the community, both within the industry and just within the communities that they're a part of at large too.
they do great work. Um, and yeah, I going back to the film itself, it's kind of a what I would call these invented. We critics, we invent new genres. Dramedy would be the best way I would kind of describe this.
Mhm.
Um, and this is for either of you. How did you strike that balance between making it a comedy and also having emotional depth to it? And what challenges did that present during the filming?
Well, I mentioned to Lee early on, like I very much tried to structure this almost like a Pixar short film, which I love, absolutely love those. And I grew up watching them and just as a filmmaker studying them too, because they're so poignant. In 5 minutes, they make you laugh, they make you cry, they make you feel everything, and they tell a really concise story. So and I recommend that for any new filmmakers doing a short film, like just study Pixar short films. They're phenomenal. And so that was a big goal was like, how do we knew it would be funny. We knew we would have laughter and bits, but how do we also make it have some emotional weight? And definitely Lee did an excellent job, especially in that last scene, kind of bringing home that relationship he has built with Duncan, the audio describer. I also think we tried to tell a story that's just, it's not really about the disability. It's a human story, and it's something that everyone has felt lonely. Everyone's felt isolated at some point, or that they don't have friends or they don't fit in. And I think that was the key was how can we tell a story that anyone can watch this and feel moved that they can see a bit of themselves in this character. And yeah, I think that was a big goal with it.
Yeah, and to add to that too, like one of the important things for both me and Luke is that human experience. How do we encapsulate the human experience in everything we do, whether it's, for Luke as a director and a writer, me as an actor and producer, but wanting everyone to take away something in some way from this. So, yeah, once again, Luke did such a tremendous job of finding that right balance because it's so hard in 5 minutes to go from laughter to making an audience feel moved by something. And then just one other thing I wanted to comment on really quickly is you had mentioned the idea of like making up genres and stuff. So every year with the Disability Film Challenge, there's a genre. This year, the genre for the Disability Film Challenge is suspense thriller, but last year it was buddy comedy. So it when with Eric becoming friends with the audio description narrator, it was kind of a way of taking that buddy comedy trope and maybe like doing it in a more unconventional way than what someone might expect.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I'll be interested to see the entries this year. You said suspension thriller is this year's theme?
Correct. Suspense thriller. So it'll be fun, and I'm excited to see what kind of films come out of the challenge this year.
Saying, and I'd be remiss to not mention this, but the short film carries the made in LA tag, and this is Slamdance's first year in LA. And I'd like to hear a little bit about how that LA affected or influenced the film in any way?
I mean, you have LA is such an interesting place because you have so many creative people here. Many of us are just kind of starving artists and just what's the next thing I can work on? And, this film was a collaboration of so many amazing people and friends of ours over the years that have really supported us, and likewise we've supported them. And once again, we didn't have money to pay anyone. We just had friends and community to say, hey, can you lend us a location? Can you lend us some equipment? Can you help hold the boom mic and record? And people were really excited to be a part of it. So I think that's a special thing about LA is just there's so many creative people, so many talented people that just want to work together and have fun. And we're so excited about Slamdance coming here now because this is one of the biggest festivals around to be in LA now.
It really is.
So it's an honor to be from LA and made in LA at the inaugural LA festival for Slamdance.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, I guess to sum it up too, like, yeah, just the idea in LA that you have a very big network to draw from. I think that's a huge perk of LA. And as long as you are just a genuinely nice person and easy to work with, just over the years, it's crazy how you can just make different connections and, friends, like more than connections, like genuine friends who are very skilled as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And then lastly, I would love to hear about what you hope audiences take away, either from the screening, either Lee or Luke can answer this, or both.
I guess, I think for me, well, and Lee shares this opinion too, but we wanted to create a film that can be experienced in the exact same way by people, whether they have vision or don't have vision. You mentioned Austin having to get a device at the theater, and sometimes it's a hassle. And, I know for Lee, many times it doesn't even work right. Many people never have that experience. And so you have two people experiencing a film in different ways. And we thought, let's bring everyone together and let's have everyone experience the exact same film. No extra device needed. We're going to go on the same exact journey together. We're all going to get the same, information, audibly at least. And I think it's kind of a unique experience for people. So I hope people walk away feeling more connected to each other, whether they have a disability or not, and maybe even just thinking differently about how they connect with people who experience the world in different ways.
And I agree with all of that. And I would also say that I hope people, like Luke said, feeling more connected to each other, but also, even feeling more connected to themselves in some way, because they'll see a part of themselves in Eric and in this kind of relationship that's formed throughout the film. And it'll make them feel seen, or at least it'll make them relate to parts of themselves, whether they've thought about those parts recently or, years ago or whatever. And also, I hope that it will allow people to see how creative storytelling can be, whether or not it's disability themed or not, but, with disability representation as well, that there's so many original ideas that still exist out there that disability representation doesn't have to be done in just like one particular way. It can be done just as creatively and can be just as fun as anything else out there too.
Great answer. Well, thank you both for taking the time to talk about your short film audio description. For a reminder, if you're going to be at Slamdance, it'll be screening at the Panasonic Lumix Theater this Sunday, followed by a screening at the Summer David Theater the day after on Monday. I'll include a link to buy tickets in the description of this interview. I'll have a review of this film as well as about 20 other projects from Slamdance, as well as interviews from about 20 films, either on my YouTube channel or on my blog, austinb.media. But until next time.
Thanks, Austin.
Yeah, thank you, Austin.
Thank you both. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate your time, and once again covering our film. It means so much. We're so honored by people that are willing to promote independent cinema and up and coming filmmakers, and really appreciate.
You can find me on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads under my username Austin B Media, as well as my Discord and Patreon community chat. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like early access to this next interview or more exclusive content, head on over to patreon.com/AustinBmedia. For just $3 a month, you get 48-hour early access to my reviews, podcasts, interviews like this one, and articles, plus patron-only channels on my Discord. The $10 a month tier, you'll unlock uncut podcast episodes, exclusive episodes, and more. If you enjoyed this interview, stay tuned for more Slamdance and South by Southwest 2025 interviews.